Now before we get started making our gradient, let's look at this image and get its measurement. I've installed the Measure It add-on in Firefox, and using it I can measure from the top edge of the browser down to the bottom edge of that red portion here, and I see that it's almost 500 pixels tall, so that gives us a number to aim for. I'm going to exit out of that and shift to Photoshop. Now in Photoshop, one of the things we can do is use the View New Guide option to put a new guide exactly where we want it. I want a horizontal guide positioning 500 pixels from the top. Click OK, and you'll see that show up here. So using this new guideline, I'm going to fire up the rectangle tool. And before I draw my rectangle, I'm going to choose a nice red color for it. Of course, you may want to be more scientific about it. I'm just going to pick a nice one and go with it. And I'm going to draw this rectangle from the top left, slightly past the edge and down to the bottom right. This way it'll entirely overlap my canvas area. Commit to that. Now we've got our red rectangle. Now I'd like to do a couple of things to this before we start putting it into the website. One thing is I'd like to actually put some gradient on this. So before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and name this red rectangle. And then I'm going to work on the blending options here. Right click, blending options. I'm going to use the gradient overlay. Now we can use a white to black gradient overlay, which is the first option it gives us, and I can dial the opacity down. And we can see here that it gives us a slightly brighter top than the bottom. But it also starts to, I'm going to OK this for now, I'm going to remove my guidelines and actually going to hide them for a minute. So we can hide those guides, or Command semicolon or Control semicolon is the shorthand for this. If I remove those guides, I can see what that gradient's doing. The only thing I don't quite like about it is it's taking it in the direction of pink toward the top. So I'd like to actually go back and edit this gradient overlay. I'm going to double click on that effects layer. I'm going to change our blend mode to overlay. This actually will help us keep the color value intact even as we brighten up the top portion of this. You can see if I scale up this overlay, it's getting darker at the bottom and brighter at the top. If I approach something like 32% with this, or 27%, it's just giving us a nice, beautiful gradient without taking it in the direction of pink. So I prefer to use the blend mode of overlay when I'm doing this. So that gets us off to a good start. In just a second, let's come back and start practice putting this into place.